welcome back to another episode of What the Forensics. My name is Journey, and I am joined here today by the lovely Nicole and Rebecca. This week, we're kind of shaking things up, and instead of focusing on a true crime and like a science or something like that, we are telling strange stories, kind of ghost stories, kind of spooky stories, kind of paranormal stories, just because Halloween's next week, and why not? A few of these stories have actually been sent in by our listeners, which is awesome. So thank you to everyone who sent a story in. We greatly appreciate you. It was super cool to see how many listeners did have ghost stories. And with that, Rebecca is going to start us off with some of her stories.
Yeah, okay. So I would love to. I don't know which one of the two to start off with. I think I know where to start off. So this story was sent in by my lovely partner, Ben. He's a very dedicated listener, and I appreciate his story. So this one didn't actually take place. It didn't happen to him. He was in the house kind of when it occurred, but it happened to his sister.
Okay.
So Ben is only like a couple years younger than his sister, so he was probably around like 13 or 14 at the time. But his sister, like a lot of teenagers, had a job at the mall and drove herself to and from. So it was like a little bit later at night, like the sun was kind of going down. It was getting a little dusk, and she usually parked on the side of the road because they had a little too many cars in the driveway. So it was just where she went to be easy. And so she pulled up and parked on the side of the road, but she noticed that when she parked in her spot, she looked just down and noticed that there was just an old woman kind of standing in the middle of the road. She wasn't waving or gesturing. She wasn't walking in any direction, and she wasn't talking. She was just kind of watching Ben's sister.
Just stationary in the middle of the road?
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which was a little obviously unnerving. So his sister was a little hesitant, but it's an old woman, so you don't really think much can happen. So ultimately she finally parked. When she got out of the car, this old woman kind of just turned around, walked away. Oh no, she's on the go.
Mm-hmm.
Which was again a little unnerving. Why were you watching me?
Yeah.
But anyway, she kind of tried to brush it off because, it's just a little old woman, and just went inside. And that was that. But I think he said it was probably only half an hour to an hour later, she went back into the kitchen, and Ben and his mother were home when she got home. They were both in the basement watching Jeopardy together. So they knew she came home just because they heard the door, but they had not been upstairs yet. And so his sister went back into the kitchen half an hour to an hour later and noticed something on the wall that definitely wasn't there before. I believe he said it was just on the, it was on their door, their wooden door. And it looked like a palm print in blood.
On the inside of the door?
Yeah.
Kitchen side of the door.
Yeah.
Oh. Yikes.
I believe. And he said you can see, you could tell it was someone's hand because you could see the lines in it, from their palm. And it kind of looked like blood. And they said Ben's sister, it was not, she is adamant it was not there when she got home. And that was the same door that she came through. So she would have seen it.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And so they even have a photo of it, and I'll see if I can get the picture of it.
I love photo evidence.
Because she obviously called Ben and their mom upstairs, which one of you did this? And they hadn't been upstairs the entire time that she was home. So they were to this day, obviously, no one knows where that handprint came from. Is it connected to the weird woman, lady on the road?
Is that just a weird coincidence? Yeah.
Yeah. It's two weird things. It's two weird things that maybe on their own you could discredit. But just the fact that they happened in such fast succession to each other, creepy old woman just staring at you from down the road, and then you leave your car and she runs away, and then an hour later there's a palm print on your door. Ugh, no thank you.
Ooh, that's so scary.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I don't like that at all.
No, I know that was a shorter story, but we're just easing into the spookier. Like this one, we don't know if it was a ghost or just like a spooky phenomenon. You know what I mean? And like Ben is a skeptic, I'd say, when it comes to ghosts. So like he's pretty rational about a lot of this kind of stuff that happens. But like even to this day, he's like, yeah, I have no explanation for what happened. He's like, you know me, like, you know, I try to make sense of it, but none of my family members think that this was done by one of them.
Wow.
Wow. I also did see an orb thing float across your screen after you're done telling that story.
It's just dust.
We should record video for this.
Okay. I do have a question. I don't know. I guess I have a few questions. Does the kitchen door lead to the outside that she came in?
Yes.
Okay. Are they a family that keeps their doors unlocked? Because I'm very much in the habit of always locking my door when I come in and out of my house. Whereas I know some families will just leave and they don't bother.
Yeah.
Do you know?
I'm honestly not positive on that one. I would have to ask Ben for more information about that.
Does Ben lock the door usually when he comes home? Oh, I guess you have the fancy lock. So
yeah, we have an auto.
Okay, never mind.
Anyways.
What time of year was this? Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. I just have so many questions.
What time of year was this? I believe Ben said this was like, when was she working at the mall? I think this would have been like towards the end of the summer.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know why that felt important, but I was like, spooky season, so maybe.
Yeah. So maybe.
The air's a little chilly.
Yeah, no, like it was like, from what Ben was telling me, like it was just like in every other way, it was a totally average day. Like nothing really happened, but they, like Ben's dad, I think was working up north at the time, so he wasn't even home. And then, yeah, Ben and his mom were hanging out downstairs. Carly was at work. Yeah, but it's just kind of lots of things that we don't know how to answer. And it's like you could possibly rationalize like one or the other, but it's just like there's a little too many things. It's just spooky. It's odd.
It's odd.
Yeah. What were your other questions, Nicole?
I could probably ask question after question after question. So stop me whenever. But did they, like, when they washed it off, because I assume they probably cleaned it off, you know how like when blood dries, it turns brown almost? Like, did they notice any discoloration, or was it still kind of a weird red irony color?
Well, I think that's the reason he said like they thought it was like blood, was because it wasn't like that bright, noticeable blood color. Like it.
Fun.
Do you have anything to say to my friends?
Meow.
He does not. He's just chilling right now. It's like.
He's like,
I just hit all of my goals sitting down.
Yay.
Ben is sending it to me right now. So I'm going to put this little van up here while I get it.
Guy. Lewis. Look at the other orange cat.
Would it be scarier if the handprint was a real bloody handprint from a person or a bloody handprint from a ghost?
I'd say from a person.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I'd say from a person. I still don't quite. Not that I don't believe. I have a harder time grasping like spirits physically interacting with things to like cause a handprint or something like that. Not to say that they aren't interacting with us, but like I think knowing someone had blood on their hands and also maybe like was in the house or tried getting in the house is more terrifying than like a one-off spirit.
Yeah. That is totally fair. And honestly, both situations to me are like, I don't like it.
Yeah. Not great. I think I would choose a spirit over a human.
I would too. Oh, I would too. But Ben actually just sent me, he sent me the picture. So I'm going to send it to you guys on message or text, and then we can also post it. But then also he sent me the post that his sister made in 2016 when this happened, because she posted it on Facebook and was like, who can explain this?
Ooh.
So I'm just going to read the firsthand account, which is her post, because she obviously would tell it.
Oh my gosh.
So, it's all good. So yeah, I'll let you look at the picture first.
That's terrifying.
It's shaped like a Ouija board planchette.
It totally
Planchette or
is.
something like
Yeah,
that.
it is.
But you have your palm print on it, or whoever's palm print on it.
Yeah, like it's clearly like you can see all of the lines that would be in your palm, like the little ones that are like a fingerprint, as well as like your big creases.
It almost feels like someone tried to close the door really quietly, and they used their hand to kind of like guide the door
Ooh.
closed.
True.
Where it is,
Ooh.
like above the doorknob there,
Yeah.
or the lock.
I would
True.
literally take palm prints of every single person in my family and then like compare.
Yeah,
And be
I would
like, hey, it was
too.
you. It wasn't a ghost.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I would too. Okay, I'm just gonna read her post because it's like spookier than what I made it out to be.
Okay.
Okay, so this is October 16th, 2016.
Of course, it's spooky season.
I know. And also to Ben's sister, if you're listening, I hope you don't mind that Ben told me it's okay to read this. Okay.
Please don't
We have
sue us.
consent by proxy.
Okay, so hoping someone can shed some light on a situation my family just experienced. On my way home from work, I was pulling over next to my house and I noticed an old lady walking past. I continued to pull over and turn the car off like normal and looked in the side mirror and noticed that she had actually turned around and started walking towards me.
Ooh.
As I got out, she stopped, turned around, and walked away in the middle of the road with her head down. Looked like she had something to say to me, but didn't. I rushed inside to tell my parents, and they seemed a little off and told me that they had something to tell me as well. I told them my experience first, and they went on to tell their story next. My mom and brother were home alone. Dad was out doing errands. My mom heard our screen door open and close. Brackets, everyone knows the sound of their own door. And assumed that it was their dad coming inside. She told Ben to go upstairs to see if the car was in the driveway and help with like groceries and stuff and see if their dad was home, but he wasn't. Instead, he went upstairs to find this print on our door. Does anyone have an explanation?
Oh, so she wasn't even home when they got that print then. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
But
so
it was still
I
too
messed up.
distinct, but at the same time, kind of.
Yeah, I messed up the timeline. So she was at work. Ben and his mom were downstairs. They were hanging out downstairs, heard the door open. Mom said, hey, I think Dad's home. Can you go help him? And he went upstairs and Dad was very much not home, but this palm print was. And then Ben's sister had this experience as she pulled into their driveway and was like, hey, I have something weird to tell you. And they were like, yo, we also have something weird to tell you.
Was it the old lady? Was
Right?
the old
That's
lady
what I
trying
want
to
to
get in her
know.
house?
I want to
That's
know
so
that
freaking
too.
scary.
Even just the
Ugh.
concept of a stranger like entering your home is frightening in and of itself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, I don't
Ugh.
like it. A couple summers ago, super duper long story short, we had our house broken into while my mom and me and Ben were all in it, and we
Oh,
weren't
wow.
hurt. Things were stolen, but
What?
I will never. Our cars, both of
Oh
them.
shit, I forgot about your cars. Yeah, I didn't realize you guys were home.
Yeah, no, we were fast asleep. And like
my God.
Ben and I were sleeping in the basement. My mom was sleeping in her bedroom, which is literally like there's their bedroom, and then there's a big open floor plan of the living room kitchen.
Yeah.
And then the laundry room door, which is also the garage door, is on the kitchen wall.
Okay.
And so that's where the person came in to get the keys. So they basically used like one of those like remote starters that turns out they're super cheap, and you can get remote starters to mimic other people's car alarms or car doors. So they had one of those, opened up the car, proceeded to get into one of our cars because it was in the driveway, and then they used the garage door opener that's inside the car to open the garage door. And obviously not thinking that anyone is going to get into our garage. Like my parents don't lock the door inside the garage.
Yeah.
And the person, so they opened the garage door and then they went in through the garage, walked into the house, found my parents' keys, and then he grabbed the keys, drove one of the cars away. And like half an hour later, my parents' like video footage shows them coming back with another person, getting in the other car, and then stealing the other car.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah.
I completely
so,
forgot that happened.
Yeah.
yeah. So like after that, I'm like, yeah, I need extra security. So I need the auto locking door in in all that jazz because I'm
Yeah.
scared.
That is very valid. That makes sense.
Yikes.
No, thanks.
Spooky. Yeah, we don't even need spiritual spooky. Let's just get real life horror.
Yeah. Just see people coming in your homes at night.
Oh my goodness, that is my worst fear. No, thank you.
I'm just so glad her dog didn't wake up because it could have been different. But
Yeah.
thank
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, that is
Thank God he's a
crazy.
sweet little man who just wanted to sleep through the night. So we're all good. But that is my first, I guess, story and a half. Went on a little tangent and then got the real story. And yeah, but that was my first one.
Wild. Thank you. I'm so spooked right now. It's not even funny. Nicole, what's your story?
Okay, my first one is a first-hand experience. My father can vouch for me if we need a second person, and probably my cousin too, because it also relates to him. I'm gonna send you guys a photo right now. But you guys know, like the 1900s phones, like wall phones, where it's just a wooden box. You've got the thing you pick up, put to your ear, and then you just have like the little mic that you talk into.
They always look so fancy. So they look like little teacups. Yeah.
So we had like a big one on the wall though, and then you've got like two little. Actually, I can just send you a photo rather than having to explain it. So we had one that looks exactly like the photo I just sent you, where you've got like the little crank on the side, I guess, the earpiece and the mouthpiece and the two bell-looking things. Lewis,
that is so cool. I've never seen one of those in person.
I know, me neither. It kind of looks like a Muppet.
It does.
Yeah, it totally does.
It reminds me, okay, so off topic, on topic. Do you know like Pinguino or something? The little doot penguin.
Yeah.
His mouth when he does like the little beep.
I love
Yeah, 100%.
That's what the mic looks like to me.
Yeah, 100%.
Anyways, okay, that's the phone. It's a Pingu phone.
I love that. Oh.
We have one of those on the wall at our cottage. It used to work. So we had it up and running and functioning. My dad had kind of like installed a more modern phone inside of it where we could open up the little wooden box, dial from that phone, but use the earpiece and the normal mic like you would back in the day.
That's really neat.
Yeah. So we had that set up for quite a while, but eventually we just didn't need a use for landline at our cottage. So we had disconnected our phone and we no longer had access or service, I guess, to this phone. So a couple years kind of passed. My cousin was up at my cottage with some of his friends. He was having like a boys' weekend, I guess. He was then telling us, prior to my dad and I going up, that him and his buddies were just at the kitchen table, shooting the shit, having a couple, drinks, just enjoying their time at the cottage, when the phone rang all of a sudden. Like out of the blue, just a single 1 to 2 rings, and then it was nothing. And my cousin, knowing that it hadn't been connected, was kind of like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Not a fan of this. Fair. So he was telling us, and while we were hearing it, we're kind of like, I don't know. Like, I don't really believe it. You're up with your buddies. You guys are drinking. You're having a good time. Like, who's to say that substances, alcohol wasn't involved that could, like, sway your decision a little bit? So then jump forward a couple of days. My dad and I are the only ones at our cottage. We're sitting in the kitchen, literally talking about my cousin's story and just kind of laughing about it, being like, haha, that was so funny. Like, no way that could have happened. When I shit you not, the phone rang twice. Like, not a single ring, but it rang twice and then just went silent. And so my dad turned to each other. What's good? Like, did you hear that kind of thing? So we checked our phones, making sure our cell phones didn't get any calls. We had no phone calls, no missed calls. We then pick up the line and it's nothing. It's not even like a dead ringtone. It's just there's nothing because it's been disconnected for years.
Oh,
and then we grabbed a flathead screwdriver to unscrew the front of the box to see the inside because we knew there was a phone on the inside and the wire connecting to the phone had been cut. So like we just don't know how the phone could have rang.
That's so spooky.
And it hasn't rang to this day. We still have the phone, but it hasn't rang to this day. And it was just, though, from my understanding, maybe my other family members had experienced something, but it's just my cousin and then my dad and I's stories. And it's just odd that it was so close to one another.
Mhm.
And while we were talking about it, that we just didn't know what to make sense of it.
Yeah,
We didn't
it's
know
like,
how to make sense of it.
it's like if it was a spirit, it's like, hey, what do you mean you don't believe in me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'll show you.
Quite literally. He's like, actually, I did do that. No. And like my dad and I was, I don't know, maybe 15, 14 at the time. I don't even know how old I was, but I wasn't of an age to be like drinking with my dad, having some drinks or like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So I'm like very well not under the influence experiencing this. Like,
Yeah.
how else could, like, how physically can a phone ring? If someone knows the answer, I would love to know if there is an answer, because I still don't know to this day.
I think the answer is just ghosts. It's just
That's
so
yeah.
cool.
No, honestly, that's my only guess is ghosts. Like I want to know the history of that phone. Like where did your family get that phone?
Now that I say this, though, my grandfather collapsed in my cottage shortly before passing away. Not that year, but that had happened in the past at my cottage. So where my kitchen is, we've got the middle living space and then another extension where our bathroom is. And from my understanding, my grandfather was coming out of the bathroom and collapsed and then was taken to the hospital where I believe he passed away, or that led to him kind of passing away.
Mm-hmm.
And then within, I don't even know how many years. Who cares? I don't know how many years. But then this phone thing happened. So
maybe it was his like final goodbye or something. It was just like, hi, I'm thinking of you or something.
probably not. But more maybe just like I guess not like a final goodbye, but
Yeah, because there would be a couple of years there.
yeah.
but-
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, like a checking in on you sort of thing. Like
Mhm.
it's always nice, like if you are having those like haunted experiences or feel like you're having some weird spooky stuff going on. Like it's nice to just think it's one of your family members. It eases the fear a little bit, even though it's still a little like that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, 100%. Crazy.
But-
Oh, yeah, that is so spooky. That reminds me of the movie. It was a horror movie. I think it only came out in 2022 called Black Phone. And obviously it wasn't like a daughter and father at like the cottage or anything like that, but it was about like a kid that gets kidnapped and then he's put into obviously this little like room where the kidnapper's keeping him, and there's this disconnected phone, this black phone that keeps ringing. And the black phone has behind it has like the voices of all of like the boys that have died before, trying to like help him escape.
Man.
Yeah, it just reminded me of that a little bit
man.
because like spooky disconnected phone starts ringing. Like, ugh.
I'm very glad that
Ugh.
I didn't hear anything, I will say, when we picked it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
I
is
would have
so fair.
probably not gone back to my cottage.
No.
If I did hear
Burn
something.
it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an
Yeah.
entity here. I'm scared.
It is now your cottage. Have the keys. Here you go. Please take care of it. It's only 3 seasons. Be sure to close it for winter. Oh,
That is so
man.
funny. Yeah, no, I think hearing something would just freak me right out.
And
Oh,
it's
me
like,
too.
it's just something about a old phone sound to like the old phone ring. It's
Well,
just
yeah.
very eerie.
It's so spooky.
Yeah.
Like the picture
Yeah.
you sent us is like the 2 bells, and like there's a little thing that goes between the bells. Like
Yeah.
they
It's
sound
not
like,
like your
an old
iPhone.
fire alarm or something.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Definitely startled us a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Oh, I bet.
That's so fair. Crazy. I don't really have any spooky stories that have happened to me. Sorry, I didn't know what you're doing.
Just no, you're good.
I purposely try and keep myself as closed off to the possibility of that happening. Because I'm like, I can't handle it. If something was to happen, I think my heart would stop and that would just be it. But when I worked in the coffee shop, we're convinced it was haunted. We had lots of just like weird things happen. I never really experienced anything other than one day the basement just had a really bad feeling. Like me and my one coworker were just like, you know what? We don't need to be down here.
Not today.
Actually, we
Yeah.
don't actually need to do that. And then
Sometimes
two of
you
my
gotta trust your gut.
Yeah.
it was weird. And then we had one of our other friends who's like her coworker and friend. She's super open to like spiritual world and stuff. So many spooky things happen to her. And we were like, can you go downstairs and just kind of like give it a feel for us? She was like, I feel nothing. I don't know what you guys are talking about. And we're like, oh, okay, yeah, totally. But her and another girl, they were like vacuuming, like the shop was closed. There was no one in there. And both of them at two separate times, like on two separate days, like months apart, felt a hand on their back.
Oh, that's so spooky.
Yeah. And I was like, ooh, I hate that. And then just like lots of other things were just like not where we would put them. But I think half of that could have just been our boss moving things when we didn't know.
Yeah.
That spooky boss.
Yeah. Yeah, literally. But yeah, that was a weird one. And then like, this isn't a ghost story, but it's a weird story about the coffee shop.
Sure.
I love weird stories.
We're convinced that the mob showed up at the coffee shop. Because my one coworker was baking, so she got there at like 6:30, and then I got there at 8 to help open up the shop. And right after I like went downstairs, grabbed my apron, and was coming upstairs, someone like pulled into our parking lot, and we were like, okay. So he pulls up to the door, and then he backs up to where you turn into the parking lot and gets out, leaves his car door open.
So pretty much blocking
the exit.
Okay.
Oh. Walks up to the back door, knocks on it, and we were just kind of like, no, maybe if we ignore him, he'll go away. So we didn't really do anything. And then he
really fair.
He knocked again and moved back so that he could see both sides of the house, because you could come around either side of the house. So he has his eye on like everything. And I kind of just like peek my head out the door and I'm like, hi.
Yeah.
And he's like, hi, is your boss here? And they asked for him by name, but I don't want to say his name. And I was like, no. And he's like, okay. And he like, mind you, he has one hand in his pocket. And I was like, what's in your pocket, sir? That's really
take your hand out.
And then I don't remember if we said anything else, but he was like, let him know that Gord is looking for him.
Oh, Gord.
Or was here to see him. And I was like, I will do that.
I will do that.
And then he got in his car and left.
I don't like that. Like,
what? Why do you need to see the boss right then and there?
Why do you need to block off the exit?
Yeah, it's the cryptic aspect of it.
And the whole like he came down to knock on the door and then backed up like away from the door.
The back door first too, yeah.
Yeah, he was only ever at the back door. And I was like, what are you like? And we weren't open yet.
Yeah.
I was like, what are you doing with this? So I texted my boss. I was like, Gord was here to see you. And he was like, okay. And I was like, that was super anticlimactic.
Who's going, boss?
Yeah. It's like, I'm pretty sure the mob was just here to like collect on a payment or something. Like, I don't understand.
Getting ready to break
I need more explanation before I can continue working here.
It was very scary. My friend was like, yeah, I was just downstairs with my hand on the alarm button of my key in case it went really south.
Honestly, like, I don't blame you. Like,
it was really scary. And like, there was nothing inherently scary about it other than like our gut feelings.
Yeah. But like, you have to trust your gut feeling. Like, sometimes they're right. Even if like nothing directly happens out of it. Like, I don't know. I'm just big proponent of trust in your gut.
Yeah. 100%. So that's my spooky not ghost story. Rebecca, I know you have another spooky story to share with us.
I do. This one's fun. And like I've shared this a few times, like over the years, just with like my close friends and stuff, because it was just strange. And I don't know, obviously, like who's skeptics and who's not skeptics. But like for the record, I'm like 100% in belief that spirits and ghosts are real. I love them. Think it's so fascinating. When I was younger, just really small tangent. I feel like I don't want to be like, I'm not like most girls, but because that is not what I'm getting at.
Like most girls.
But I'm not like most girls.
Like, I just remember all my friends getting super duper into makeup, and then I'm like looking up online like the cheapest like tools for going ghost hunting, like the audio recorders and like the ghost box. I was like, how much money would it be to get myself a good ghost setup?
The other girls are saving money for makeup. You're saving money for spirit box. I love it.
And I'm still really bad at makeup, so like maybe I should have followed along with that.
No.
But that's beside the point. Yeah, so I think I've always kind of believed in spirits partially because of this experience. But we used to travel a lot. My mom used to have a job that caused her to travel around a lot, like Canada and the States. And every once in a while, she would bring along my aunt Tracy, because like my mom and her sister are really close. And me and my cousin, who's obviously my aunt's son, we're only two months apart in age. So we grew up like brother and sister, and we went everywhere together. So this would have been when we were like no older than 4 years old. I think my mom said I was either like just before 3 years old or just after 3 years old. And she had a business trip to San Francisco. And obviously being like a 4-year-old, it was my first time in San Francisco. And I don't remember a lot because I was super mega young. But like we did all the usual stuff, like the sightseeing, the Golden Gate Bridge. We saw Alcatraz, which was super cool, which I don't remember, but I want to go back to. But we stayed in a hotel that was called the Dolce Hayes Mansion. And it was called this. Apparently, this mansion was a hotel, obviously, but at one point in time, a very rich family, I think it was in like 1905 to 8, they built this mansion to live in, but the mother of the house ended up dying before they completed it. So it just kind of like went into ruin until someone else bought it. But anyways, it's this beautiful hotel, like it's a beautiful property. And we, get there, my aunt is looking after me and my cousin at the time because my mom had like meetings and things. And she was trying to put us down for bed, and like kind of the layout of the room. There was like 2 kind of bedrooms and like a tiny little, I guess, hallway or common area, just because there was like me and my mom and then my aunt and my cousin. And so she had just put down my cousin to bed in the other room. So I cannot see him at all. And then she came in to my aunt to put me to bed. But for whatever reason, and not to brag, but according to my parents, I was an angel child. And I never cried. I wasn't terribly fussy, and I wasn't a crier. So I'm like, so this was a little unusual for me. But yeah, so my Aunt Tracy was trying to put me down like for sleep. And I was like, really agitated and really anxious and really cranky. And I was like, no, like I can't do it. And she's like, what's wrong? And I said like that, the little boy, it won't stop staring at me. She's like, what do you mean? What little boy? And I was like, and I was saying like the little boy in the room, he wants me to go outside with him. Like he wants to play. He won't stop leaving me alone. And my Aunt Tracy's like, what are you talking about?
The little boy is in bed, Rebecca.
Yeah. It's like,
what little
obviously
boy?
She went and checked on him. And her little boy is soundly asleep in bed, like fast asleep. And like she comes back out and like still trying to console me. And I am inconsolable. Like apparently I was saying like, and like looking in a certain direction. It's not like I'm like everywhere in the room. Like I'm looking at like this one point in the room and I'm like, that little boy will not stop staring at me. And he's picking on me. And so like my aunt called my mom and was like, please come back. Please come back.
Here ASAP.
I thought that also I saw a fluff, but it was a cat hair. It was not an orc. But yeah, so like my mom came back to the hotel and she also tried to console me, and like I would not go to sleep. And they're like, okay, that's it. So my mom actually went to the front desk and she's like, hey, this sounds ridiculous, but here's the situation. And she told them basically like, my daughter is my daughter says she's seen a little boy. She's like, I know this is crazy, but she just won't sleep. And they were like, oh, okay, yeah, you've met one of like the boys that live here. And she's like, what?
Wow.
And they said, yeah, there's actually at least two spirits that people occasionally claim to see. There's one of like a woman that often kind of like roams the halls, and there's a little boy that they often see in like a couple specific rooms. And I don't know a lot of the history of the hotel because like it's changed hands a lot, but basically a few years before they built what is currently the Hayes Mansion, the original mansion burned flat to the ground with everyone in it.
Okay.
And so the receptionist was basically like, yeah, no, sometimes people report seeing this woman walking the halls. Sometimes they report a little boy. So like, we're not surprised that your daughter is talking about this. And free of charge, they upgraded our room to like one of the nicest rooms right next to the pool. And they were like, don't even worry about it. Like, we understand. And then I was fine to sleep. And apparently in this room, again, like I don't remember, but my mom said there was like a couple like old pictures who didn't really think anything of them. They were like, oh, maybe it's just like the old owners of the house. But my mom said one of the pictures was of a little boy.
Oh man.
Ooh,
No
yikes.
thanks.
To this day, my mom's like, we haven't been able to find any more information like about that picture or about like anything else. But yeah, like pretty sure a little ghost boy was trying to hang out with me that day.
Making fun of you. My gosh.
Yeah.
That's
Like,
Is the
just let me
hotel
go to
still
sleep.
standing?
It is actually. Apparently a few years ago, the Hilton bought it.
Classic. Okay, I was gonna say
Yeah,
we should road trip, go back.
We
Go
still
to the room.
could.
Yeah,
It probably
see if
just
the
doesn't
boy
have that
speaks to you.
cute charm anymore.
Yeah.
But
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
but yeah, it's still a
Wild.
nice looking hotel, but it's owned by the Hilton in San Jose, California, if anyone wants to look that up.
Okay.
Oh,
Do you
Yeah,
remember
but
the
that's-
room number? Like, do you think that, like, if it was the
13.
specific room had anything to do with it?
I
guess you
don't-
wouldn't remember. You were
Yeah, I was
four.
gonna say I don't remember the room number, but I can definitely call my mom. Like next time I'm chatting to my mom, I can definitely see like if she knows those details. I feel like either she has it written down in detail somewhere, or I asked my mom for the full story when I was like 10 years old and wrote it in a little diary, and then just obviously lost the diary because I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that's just one story. It's like, even though I don't specifically remember it myself, like I'm just like, ooh,
Mhm.
like I still,
Yeah.
it just gives me like unease. But at the same time, like I don't think like the little boy was there to hurt me.
Yeah.
But I like just like the receptionist was like, oh yeah, that's normal. And we're like,
What? That's the craziest part, is they were just like, yeah, you just met our patron ghost, so here's an
Yeah.
upgrade.
they're like, sorry he bugged you today. He's not usually like this.
He just wants to play.
Yeah, but yeah,
Yikes.
no, that's my main story. I also have little like small tidbits. My mom is convinced that I'm sensitive to the spirit realm and all that stuff too, but I don't want to like say that I am, because obviously one, that's going to cause a lot of people to be really skeptical and like, you're wrong. And I don't want that kind of attention. And like, I don't know. I'm just open to possibilities. I don't know what's out there. I'm just gonna, if I experience something that I think is spooky, then I'm probably gonna just relate it to something spooky. So
Yeah,
we don't know.
Exactly.
I think with you saying that too, because I was gonna say, like, I think children and those who are like open to the
Mhm.
possibility are more willing to like understand or believe that they had like something weird happened.
Yeah.
And like, you
Yeah.
can be as rational as you want to be, but if you're still open to the idea of, well, maybe, then I still
Mhm.
think there's room for possibility.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I think it's so strange, but I do believe it as well that like
Mhm.
kids are more susceptible
Yeah.
to it. Like,
Yeah.
it's just so interesting. Like, I don't know where I was going with that, but I just think it's really fascinating, and I definitely would agree with it, because like I had more experiences like that when I was a kid growing up than like definitely than I ever do now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like now it's like maybe every couple years or few years, but back then it seems like half the things my mom told me was like, oh yeah, you were visited by so and so, and I'm like, What do you
All
mean?
Oh, cool. Yeah, it's crazy that kids, like, they're just so open to it. And I'm also a firm believer that imaginary friends are ghosts.
Yeah, I
I
hear
never
so
had
many
one.
spooky stories about them.
Yeah.
I
I
had
always wished
one.
I had one.
Yeah, apparently I had one. I've got no memory. Her name was Junta. We played in the pantry together, and
Oh.
we were besties.
That's nice. At least she was nice to you.
Oh,
Right?
You know
Her
what? I guess
name
that's what an
means-
imaginary friend is for, is being nice.
Yeah, we would like hang out together. And then I learned that like Junta is like a religious war. Like that's what the name translates to.
Really? That's
And I was
fascinating.
like, what does that mean?
That's interesting.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
And then like my cousin's kids, her niece has an imaginary friend, and her name is like Colleen or something. And it's a name that they
It's my
don't
own
know
name.
anyone named Colleen or like
Oh.
anyone with
Oh.
this specific name. And so
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
me, I'm like, that's a ghost. Your kid is friends with a ghost. That's totally fine. They like play together. It's whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're like, it's just so weird. Like, where did she come up with that?
It's like, I don't think she did.
Yeah,
She was a
like, I
friend.
think it's a real
Someone's
person.
whispering it to her at night.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that is so fascinating.
wild.
I
That's
just
so
love
cool.
like we're a science and true crime podcast. But the amount of like spooky stories and like astrology and spirit stuff that I have been like, oh, I want to talk about this.
Yeah.
It's like ridiculous. And I'm like, our listeners are too rational for that every episode.
But I think it's cool because we are like rational science brain people who are also open to the possibilities of these
Mhm.
more like spooky
Unexplainable
things.
things. Yeah.
yeah, for
So
sure.
my narcissism is telling me that people would love to hear us talk about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Nicole, you have another one too?
I do. So this one is a story from my good friend from university, Sam. I remember the first time her telling me this, I was really spooked out about it. And then something happened after the fact that I was involved with that really freaked us out. And then she sent me the story last night, kind of in prep for this episode, and I had actual chills in bed reading it again.
Oh no.
Oh, we love
photos.
visceral reactions.
I have a photo to show you guys after too. So when she did a gap year in Australia. So when she had moved to Australia, she was staying in what was called a donga. And these are basically like smaller temporary dwellings. They kind of look like portables or like shipping containers.
Okay.
And the way that it was set up, the one that she was staying at, it was like 4 of them together to make a rectangle, but each of the doors were facing the outside of the 2 sides. So you couldn't access the other units unless you had gone outside and like around to their front door. So kind of like was like that.
Oh, okay,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
You know
cool.
what I mean? So she was staying at this donga, and it was single story, like I said, 4 units, 2 on each side, back to back. When she first moved in, Sam, along with the girl in the unit beside her on that same side, started having just like strange dreams. And I feel like, knowing Sam, she's just never really had odd dreams. Like that's not something she ever talks about. Whereas like some of my friends are like, wow, I had this really in-depth, vivid dream. Let me tell you about it. Never really had that from Sam. And so her and the girl beside her started getting these dreams, and they would wake up every now and then hearing each other from the other unit. So it wasn't like a talking situation, but it was just sounds that seemed like the other person were making. Maybe it was like sleep mumbling, just odd noises that was coming from the other unit.
Oh.
So one of the nights, I believe she was working at the school because they had attended a toga night with some of the staff from that school. And so for listeners that may not know, toga nights are just like you dress up with a white sheet, basically. You wrap it around yourself like one of an old Greco-Roman garb. and you call that your toga and you go and have a good time. So they went to this toga night, but because of the white sheet basically and like the exposed legs, because it was fairly warm, there were a whole bunch of bruises that scattered their bodies that were visible with the togas, and a lot of it was predominantly in the thigh area, and the side of the thigh. So they initially thought they were just bug bites. I don't know if they had been to Australia prior or if Sam had been. This was her first time, but they just thought maybe this is a bug we hadn't seen before. They're bug bites. Cool. So while they were at this toga night, though, because of how visible they were, they kind of just asked around their coworkers and were like, do you guys know what bug would have caused something like this? Like, we both have them and it's really strange. Do you have any insight on that? And the one coworker they asked, I guess his face just kind of dropped all of a sudden and he kind of lost his party going excitement. He couldn't tell them about what they were or like what possible bugs could have caused them. He just wasn't going to say anything. And he told them to ask the elder at the school on Monday.
Oh no.
The two of them like really tried to get an answer from their coworker to say anything more about this, but he refused and just wouldn't budge and wouldn't give them any information. So the next day, when they were back at the school, they ended up going to go see the elder and they talked to him about the bruises. And upon telling them and like showing them the bruises, the elder had just kind of calmly told them that there was a spirit in the area. And I don't know if it was like on the grounds of the school. I don't know the range, I guess, of the spirit. But he was saying that there was a spirit and that Sam and her unit partner, neighbor, weren't the first gap year students to have this type of thing happen to them.
Wild.
That's so strange.
Yeah. So he advised them to like speak with the spirit, get to know the spirit, I guess, communicate with it. It was friendly and it really just didn't mean them any harm, according to the elder. And he did say, though, like, if you are uncomfortable and you do want to get rid of the spirit, all you have to do is you put salt on your door, which I anticipate is like the line on the threshold, but I don't know if it's just a little bit of salt, and a glass of water by their bed. So that evening they had gone back to their rooms. Oh, I forgot. Okay, I missed a part 2 at the start. So, there was no Wi-Fi. There was no Wi-Fi in these like rooms of theirs. So they had gotten a portable Wi-Fi router to try for in their donga, but it just never worked for them. Okay. It worked elsewhere, but it just didn't work for them in the donga, from my understanding. So they go back to the apartment or the donga after speaking to the elder. And they're like, you know what? Let's just watch a movie. Let's decompress a little bit. Let's see if we can get it to work. And all night the Wi-Fi just wasn't working. The movie wouldn't load, similar thing as previous nights, and nothing would load for them. So they jokingly kind of threw out there like, hey, if there's a spirit, can you kind of get this Wi-Fi working so we can watch our movie? And instantly the Wi-Fi started working and the movie started playing. And so this really freaked Sam out at this. Well, not really freaked, but it did freak Sam out at this point because she was like,
for sure.
Oh my gosh. Okay. That just happened.
Yeah.
So Sam ended up putting like the salt on her door and the water by her bed. And she said once she had done that, she no longer was having dreams. Same, I think with the unit neighbor, if she had done it too, but yeah, she had no longer had dreams. She no longer had new bruises appearing on her body. And the Wi-Fi had just consistently worked after the fact.
Wow.
So leading up to it, it just never worked for them. And then once she had made those, or not arrangements, but like put the salt down in the water, nothing continued. And so I didn't really know kind of the after effect of that, but she just said things cleared up. But 2 to 3 years later, Sam and I are now in Halifax, Nova Scotia. She's come over to my apartment. I'm with Sarah at this time. Like, she's my roommate. And Sarah's got a Ouija board. And Sam's into all that stuff too. I was just there, so I joined.
Nope.
Side note, my mom growing up would not let me use a Ouija board.
Yeah.
Because she had really bad experiences with them growing up.
My babysitter had one, and she would like use it with me when I was under 7 maybe, and we would like sign our name on the back.
Mm-mm.
And I was like,
That's so scary.
a lot of my fear I think stemmed from that babysitter, but we had the Ouija board out. And so it was kind of getting to the point. Have you guys ever used a Ouija board?
No, my mom didn't let me.
Right. Okay. I wasn't sure if you'd
mess
like
with the Ouija board.
Okay. Now I'm just too scared of them. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I feel like there's a point where, and this may be in like media too, but you're just at a point you're like, okay, nothing's really happened. And so you kind of get skeptical. You kind of are like, okay, let's just give up soon kind of thing. And you just kind of hope that something will happen. But Sam and Sarah, because they're very much more open to the idea than me, I would say, towards like spirits, and like more open to accepting like interactions with spirits than I am, because I just want none of that. They were like, let's tell each other spooky stories that we've encountered, and maybe that will like kickstart something. So Sam proceeds to tell us this story as we've got our fingers on this planchette for the Ouija board. Spoiler alert, the Ouija board doesn't move, but the light above us, there's 3 light bulbs in this ceiling light. They're all connected to dim at the same time, right? You can't individually turn them off. One of the light bulbs just turns off mid-story. And then as kind of Sam's finishing up, the light bulb turns back on. We're like, okay, that's kind of strange. Don't really like that. And the light had flickered in the past on previous days, but it was all 3 bulbs kind of flickering as if like it's just an old fixture and whatever. So we thought it was a bit strange for just the one light bulb to have gone out. And then the following day, like we kind of wrapped up and we're like, yeah, we're done for the night. So we wrapped up. Sam went home. We spent the night. And then the next morning I get a text from Sam and she's like, hey, like not to freak out at all, but do these bruises look strange to you? And her thigh was covered in bruises that were like pinpoint bruises. And it almost looks to the point of like someone very curious is poking at you.
Oh my God.
Leaving bruises on your leg. And we still don't understand, because I had seen her the day before and I had seen her legs had no bruises at all. So unless she's going home and like attempting to bruise herself, I don't know how it could have happened, because bruises also take a hot minute to set, right? Let me show you this photo of her leg, because they were like a replica of, maybe not, replica may not be a right word for that, but like exactly what she had experienced in Australia.
Oh my goodness.
And they're like quarter-size bruises, some of them. At least one of them looks like a loony-sized bruise.
Yeah. Does she bruise relatively easily, or does it take quite a bit for her to bruise? Do you know?
I think it depends on where. Like she's had some gnarly bruises in the past.
Yeah.
But I feel like we're also quite clumsy, so it's a lot of like hitting into corners of stuff. So like
those are weird though.
Right?
Oh, you texted them. Okay.
Yeah, so I sent them.
Yeah, they like the way that they're even like the shape of them is even like it's 4 fingers almost that you just like poked in and like they went down a little and like poked somewhere else. Like
a line of circular
why are they in
almost.
that line?
Wow.
And the one on top of her knee, I could kind of see is maybe like bumping her knee on like a desk or something. But the top of the top and inside of the thigh, I don't understand how.
Well, the rest are just kind of weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, like to go to sleep with like absolutely no indication. Like I wake up with mysterious bruises because I'm mega clumsy and don't pay attention to when I run into things. So I'm like, oh, where'd that come from? But like I don't wake up with like 7 or 8 all in a row of each other, but not connected. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Ooh.
And I can't even think of an object that she might have maybe hit. And then
No,
I don't know.
It's not like that shape.
That's so weird. Especially after telling the same story of being like, oh, I woke up with these bruises all over my legs. And then you go home and you wake up with those exact same bruises, like however many years later.
Yeah. And that was
It's
the thing too, because she had told us that it was largely on her thighs when she was in Australia.
Yeah. Just
Oh,
like
that's so
brought that
spooky.
spirit to Halifax for
And
the
I'm like,
night.
I don't know if they're making the global trek.
I don't think it would be that far in the spirit world, you know? Like you summoned
that's
it with
true.
the Ouija board and then it was like, hello, I'm here for
Hey
the
there.
night. And then maybe like left or got bored or is still there. Like,
Yeah. There's I don't know if you guys have been keeping up with Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix.
I have not.
no, I haven't.
I love Unsolved Mysteries. They've gotten a lot more supernatural in the last couple seasons. Like it used to be more like
Ooh.
missing person, but there was just an episode, and I won't go too long because, like I said, it's a new episode of Unsolved Mysteries. It's on Netflix, like top 10 right now. But it's a man who, and there's like countless people have also experienced her, but like sort of through him, who is convinced that he has a spirit entity, possibly demon, like they don't know, like literally co-living with him in his mind, and helps him. Like he goes to people's houses who like are having paranormal stuff, and like he goes and investigates it and stuff. But this Becky entity like helps him with these cases, and it sounds ridiculous. And there is nothing that I can say to make it not sound ridiculous because I agree. Like when the episode started, I was like, oh, there's no way. Like this dude probably has schizophrenia.
Yeah.
Like not to make fun of illness or mental illness, but still, like it was like he's hearing voices.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
like, is it maybe a dissociative identity disorder situation?
Like that's what I was thinking, but then like the amount of interviews they did with people that he tried to show this entity to, that are like even the president of like, I think it's like I don't know, whatever the science is, the scientific study of paranormal activity and stuff like supernatural. He's like as skeptic as it gets when it comes to like someone saying I can talk to ghosts. And he's like 110%. I don't know what Becky is, but he is living with something inside him.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Like you
that's
need
so
to.
scary.
There's only like 4 episodes, I think, in
Yeah, I'm
season
gonna binge
5.
that.
If there's anyone you check out, it's got to be that one and the mutilated cows because that's
Oh.
crazy.
Okay.
And also for another time if we ever talk about aliens. I love stuff that people don't think are real science because they're not proven.
That's fantastic. Okay, is that all for Sam's story, Nicole?
It is.
Okay.
I also have another story currently actively coming through. So
Ooh.
once Rebecca goes again, I may be good to go.
Sounds
Okay.
good. Okay.
I don't think I really have. Sorry, I was gonna say I don't really think I have any other stories per se.
Okay.
I do have one super small thing that was like it sort of resurfaced again in like 2015 or 16, but it was my great grandmother Bailey. My middle name is Bailey, so it's like after her. And my great grandfather. Sidetracked. Sorry, I'm distracted. She died when I was like less than 2 years old. So I genuinely don't have any recollection, unfortunately, of her, which is really sad because I've heard she was an amazing woman. But like as a 2-year-old, obviously you don't really remember a lot of stuff. And my parents were telling me how like I was probably like 6 or 7 years old and I just woke up in like hysterics, bawling my eyes out and like demanding to see my Nan Bailey. And I was like, I need to see her. Like I miss her so much. Like I like just like absolutely in hysterics, like demanding my Nan Bailey. And they're like, where's this coming from? Like you don't even remember her. So that was just really weird. Like I woke up just crying for her, like missing her so terribly. And then just like a few years ago, it was the first time I went to see a local astrologer here in Nova Scotia. I'm not positive whether or not she'd want me to say her name. Like she is relatively famous, but I won't, just like for the sake of privacy. And it was like a week or so before my very first appointment, like with an astrologer. And I was like kind of skeptical going in, whatever. But I was driving in Bears Lake, which is just a little shop. It's a shopping district in Halifax for like, obviously those who aren't familiar. And I was just like absolutely convinced. It was one of those things that's like the corner of your eye. You're like, did I really just see that? Like sitting at the opposite side of a stoplight to me was my Nan Bailey sitting in her Monte Carlo. She had a very distinct, like aquamarine colored, like 60s or 70s Monte Carlo that my great grandfather kept in their garage like 20 years after she died.
Wow.
And just for like quick second, like I remember looking and just clear as day, like I can make out all the details of her hair and everything. Like I just remember seeing her sitting at that crosswalk and like looking away, and it was just like a normal car and it was gone. I was like, that was really weird. Like I didn't really think a lot of it. I didn't really mention it to anybody until like a week later, and I was talking to the astrologer, and she was saying, she was like, do you have like a someone who died in your family like somewhat recently? I was like, no, definitely not recently. And she was okay, well, you have like sort of like a almost like a guardian figure, like that's been basically watching over you for like your entire life almost. And she said like it's like definitely a feminine figure, and it feels like she's only now just basically saying like she's comfortable and believes that I'm okay to go on my own now, and like my guardian angel is okay to like leave me be. And she said like this was like a very recent thing that kind of the guardian angel like had decided like I'm okay now. And like obviously I didn't mention that weird little experience to the astrologer with like the car. I didn't mention it to anybody. But like immediately I was like, oh, I was like, that's really weird. Like I hadn't thought of, and it's like kind of mean, but like still, like I hadn't thought of my Nan Bailey in like years, really.
Yeah.
Like, and then I just out of the blue, I was like what the fuck?
Yeah, that's so weird.
Back.
Yeah, and then a week later, the astrologer was like, someone's been watching over you for like the past like decade and a half, but they've just decided that you're okay. And I was like, oh, like I got chills everywhere, and oh yeah, it was just really weird. And yeah,
that's really cool.
Believe in spirits, but that's all.
Next time I come out, we should go visit her. Like not your Nan Bailey, the astrologer.
Yeah, we will have to book like pretty far in advance, but like even if we did like a class or something, that would be so fun.
Yeah, it would be.
She does classes
cool.
too.
That's neat.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
I have a quick ghost story that I remembered when Rebecca was telling her San Francisco one, or San Jose, and I only realized it was a ghost story last year.
Oh,
yeah, because I thought it was real. So.
Okay.
When I was 3 or 4, I think I would have had to have been 3 because my sister wasn't born yet, but my brother was. We were moving houses, and so we were looking at the house that we were moving into before we bought it. And as we were doing a tour, we went to the master bedroom and we peeked in, and their bed was all made up. And I saw a little girl sitting on the bed, like feet straight, ankles crossed, just like hands on her lap, just like sitting there. And she kind of just was like a regular little girl, like a modern girl, I guess, not like a creepy old girl. No one else saw her.
Oh.
And I was just kind of like, maybe it's a weird doll, because I had a weird doll at that point. So I was like, maybe they just, and then I was like, maybe the kid who lived there has an older sister who was in timeout, but why would she be in timeout on their bed? And it was like perfectly made and super weird.
Yeah.
And then,
no thanks.
I was thinking about it last year, and I was like,
do you guys remember this? And your parents
maybe it was a ghost. Yeah. And I was talking to my mom. I was like, do you remember this? She's like, not at all. I was like, yeah, I saw a person like sitting on the bed.
Like clear as day.
Clear as day. It was a little girl like my age or a little bit older. Yeah.
That's so weird.
But then I never had any other weird experiences in that house. So I don't know if she was like with the family or if it was just a weird thing, or maybe there was a girl and my parents just don't remember.
Either way, it's a weird occurrence.
It was very, very odd. Yeah, like clear as day. Like I remember playing with the little boy after we went downstairs and he showed me all of his toys like lined up on the wall.
Wait, the kid did at the house?
Yeah, not the one sitting on the bed, but the actual real little boy.
Oh, the real life boy. Okay.
Yeah, who lived there.
And
And
I was like, you forgot to mention this other spirit. Oh my gosh.
At least, who knows? There was like a ton of toys. It could have just all been not real. I don't know. But yeah, it was really super odd. But
that's
that is
so
my
weird,
one and
especially
only
like
story.
Sorry, I was gonna say it's so weird, especially when like you have weird experiences growing up, but you don't actually realize that they were really strange or like spooky or weird until you bring them up like 10 years later and you're like, hey, remember this? And they're like, no.
Nope.
No.
Yeah, it was super odd. And yeah, I literally didn't even realize that it might have been a ghost until last year.
Oh man.
Spooky. Yeah. Ugh.
Wild.
Well, at least she was probably friendly. That seems to be like, besides Sam's bruises, but I mean, they did leave them alone once she asked for the Wi-Fi and stuff. I feel like all of our ghost experiences have at least been pretty much friendly.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Other than like the bloody handprint.
Yeah, that's not very friendly, actually. I take it back.
Scary.
That could have been a human, though. That could have been a not great human prowling around.
Yeah.
Oh, God, that's so spooky.
Do you have more updates, Nicole?
I have more.
Okay.
One of my good friends, Avery. I'm just going to read it verbatim because I haven't read through it and I don't know how to summarize it for you all. It says, I used to work at a haunted inn located in Kingston, Ontario. Some of the rumored haunts included a lady in white, poltergeist activity, and a young boy riding a tricycle. Brackets, yuck. The inn was quite small, and oftentimes only one employee would be working. So you'd have like the front desk or like the night staff kind of thing. I guess the front desk employee was also the night staff and also kind of XYZ.
Okay.
When the inn first opened, the owners leaned into the haunted reputation, even having a stop in the haunted walk in Kingston. Then she goes to say, by the time I was hired, the inn had been bought out and all employees were told not to speak of the ghosts. We may not have talked to the ghosts, but we definitely talked to each other. And she just lists off then some of the things that her and her coworkers have experienced. They've experienced disembodied crying when the inn was empty.
Yikes.
Oh, goosebumps. Seeing people that aren't there. 2 instances stick out to me here. One day I very clearly saw a man with a tall hat, kind of like a top hat, in her periphery. But when she turned to greet him or look at him, she saw no one there.
The lore around the man with the top hat is so scary.
Yeah. A night watchman once told her that he was watching TV in one of the rooms after hours and was shocked when he saw a little girl sitting next to him on the couch. Unlike his top hat or her top hat man, the little girl was there when he turned and looked at her. And Avery says she thinks of her often. I can't even imagine like turning and seeing a child beside me. Yeah. And knowing it's not a real child.
I legitimately think I would have a mental breakdown.
Yeah, I would.
I have no idea how I'd respond to that.
Man. They've also experienced things being moved, even though you were the only one working. So Avery often attributed this to the little boy spirit that people had seen riding a tricycle around the first floor. So pens would be moved, things in the office would fall over seemingly out of nowhere. But the most common one for her was hearing the very heavy, put your whole weight into it, get the door open kind of door opening.
Oh, wow.
So she would slide back in her little wheelie chair to greet the guest. The door would be closed and there would be nobody inside or on the steps. So this energy felt very playful to her and she didn't mind these interactions though.
Wow. Sorry, I have been listening while I was away and spooky. Okay.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Especially the Hat Man. I was like, okay, I was in the bathroom and you said Hat Man and I was like, what? No.
The idea of the top. It gives me very H.H. Holmes vibes. Like I could see H.H. Holmes as a being that you would see in a top hat. That kind of man with a fancy mustache and a bowler hat or a top hat.
Yeah, the top hat man is so freaking scary. One of my friends used to either like see him or dream of him, and he had like piercing green eyes and this like top hat. And when you actually, I'm fairly certain when you look up the lore, those are things that are like attributed to this person that so many other people see. And it's very scary.
Yeah, it's similar. Sorry, I'll let Nicole get back to her story. But I was just saying it's similar like lore to the hag. Like people see like the hag and the Hat Man kind of like interchangeably sort of thing. And I saw the hag when I was younger, but that was partially, I can't tell if that was like actually the hag and sleep paralysis, or if it was like side effects from like a medication I was trying. But still, I saw the hag and it was the most vivid old woman I've ever seen in my life in my bedroom at 3 a.m. and
God.
like I couldn't sleep. I literally just didn't sleep the rest of the night because I was like, well, if I open my eyes, that woman is going to be here because that is where she was standing.
Oh my goodness, no. Absolutely.
Jesus.
Yeah, sorry. I'll let you continue.
That's okay. There's the last thing too, or semi-last thing. She also said that there were haunted and scary AF tunnels into the maids' quarters.
Yikes.
So these tunnels were the bane of her existence as she had to fold the laundry down there during her late shifts. So she says the energy here was very dark and unsettling, so I would always call a friend during my laundry folding. One night, nobody was picking up, so I decided to speak out loud to make myself feel better. I said, you know, it must really be terrible to be stuck down here. You can come upstairs as long as you don't scare me when it gets dark. Not the greatest move, but I digress. A short while later, while walking around upstairs, I heard a very distinct growl from the back room of the kitchen.
That's not friendly.
I froze and thought of every possible appliance in the kitchen that could make that noise. All of them were turned off and had been for some time. So Avery goes to say, clever, you scared me before it got dark. And she goes to say, like, make sure you're specific with ghosts. And I was like, holy smokes, these are spooky. She goes, someone apparently had their eyes roll back in their head in the laundry room, like attempted possession vibes, but she doesn't remember enough about the story to like properly include what had happened.
That's fair.
Yeah. Insane.
Yikes.
I feel like Kingston's just a scary place. Not so much like the town itself, but just stuff that has happened in Kingston, because I'm pretty sure they also have the Kingston Penitentiary there. And not great things have happened there.
Well, at least she was friendly to the ghosts. Like, you know, she was a little friendly banter. She's like, you can come upstairs, just don't scare me. Like, yeah, I feel like if there's any way to interact with spirits, it's kindness. It's like, yeah, you might be scary and maybe mean, but maybe it's just because you're scared of people. Like when people say like the animal's more scared of you than you are of it. Yeah, maybe that's just like spirits.
Exactly.
That is crazy.
I couldn't last. If I was working in a haunted place, I couldn't last.
No.
Oh, I should have got my friend Caroline to tell me a story too. Okay, I'll see if she can relay this to me and then we can maybe include it as another post. But
okay.
She had traveled to, I don't even know, I'm not even gonna do this justice, but it was very much like a slave's quarter. You're sitting in the corner of this room and then all of a sudden just like dampened emotion, dampened your cold, and then could feel just a odd presence around her. I'll have to pick her brain about that though and reshare it with you guys, but just reminding me of so many other like odd stories I've heard from friends.
That's so cool.
I feel the same. Like the more we talk, the more I'm like, oh, what about this one? But none of them like I know well enough because they're all just floating around in my brain, waiting for the right moment. And then the right moment comes, I'm just not prepared. It's all a jumble.
I feel that.
Avery says she also had a weird experience in the Kingston Penitentiary or the Kingston Pen.
Oh,
we'll see if she. Oh my gosh, it's a 6-minute drive, the inn from the pen.
Ooh. Oh. How old is this inn? It's got to be pretty old. Like, it has to have some crazy history.
Look up the Hochelaga Inn. Hochelaga Inn.
A comfort and quality boutique hotel in downtown Kingston.
This is not an ad. If you do want to pay us, though, to sponsor.
It was built in 1878.
Oh,
it kind of looks like it too. Just like it looks like a historic But like it's got the spire, it's got like the bay window, and like it's all, that's actually a beautiful building. But I can definitely see how it would be haunted.
Totally haunted.
Oh yeah, that's a haunted place.
Reminds me of somewhere that my mom and I stayed when we went to Salem last.
Really?
Oh my goodness. I think I'd have to stay in a brand new building in Salem. I'd be like, I'm not even taking any chances.
This time around, we're staying in somewhere that is newer, so it's not said to be haunted. But last time, my mom and I specifically sought out somewhere that was like rumored to be haunted.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't do that.
Well, I'm excited to hear if you have any stories when you come back of anything like spooky.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I hope I have. I mean, I know I'm going to have like stories to share with you guys. Just whether or not they're going to be spooky is another story.
Yeah. Fair.
I wonder if
apparently the inn was built, 1879 for the Kingston's first mayor.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Crazy. But I just sent you guys a link to Experiencing Hochelaga Inn, History, Haunts, and Reviews.
Ooh.
She just shared with me.
I think I'm on that one.
So I think a lot has happened. It is a beautiful place.
Mm-hmm. It's gorgeous.
Definitely has lived through some stuff though.
100%.
But yeah, another slight story, because I don't know the specifics and my dad never got back to me for details, but I was telling the girls this earlier. It's a very drug-induced story. He had just undergone a very big surgery. I'm pretty sure this was his 24-hour surgery. So he was heavily medicated. Wow. He was very not in it. But my grandma has a whole log book of my dad's time in the hospital, and she's got a writing of this. I'll have to get it from him, but from what I can remember, he was telling my grandma, or there was some sort of conversation about the fact that looking out the window in the hospital, he had seen kind of like this black aura beam coming up from a space in the distance. Yikes. He didn't know what it was, but it was just a line coming up from a location farther off in the distance. Didn't really think of it. Told my grandma this though, and then I guess other weird hallucinations happened. I think he remembers like Wayne Gretzky speaking to him at one point, but the beam was a very important one because after not long after, all of the ER nurses and all of the staff kind of not get into a panic, but like stuff's happening. And so people are like rushing places. It's a hospital. Someone's coming in from the ER. Turns out there was a really bad car accident that had happened, and it had happened the same area in which my father had seen that beam of black light.
No. Wow.
And the car accident had resulted in a fatality on scene, with another individual being taken and brought to the hospital.
Oh my goodness.
My God.
And so I as much as you can blame this on like medication, sure. But like there has to be something to that, because how else is my dad going to know that? And how else would my dad like anticipate a car accident with a fatality happening at that same time?
Well, yeah, like how is his drug, if it was truly like just a hallucination, I'm basically reiterating what you're saying, but like how did his hallucinating brain guess that that's where something was going to happen, and that's where the hallucination needs to be seen from?
Right? Yeah. So I don't know the specifics.
I wonder if it was just because like of the drugs he was on, like he was more open to it and he was able to like, my dad's really into dimensions right now, so maybe he was able to like see into a different dimension and there was like this black
honestly,
thing or whatever.
I don't have obviously that none of this is terribly scientific, so I don't have anything to say to back this. I fully agree. I sound like a lunatic in this episode. I'm sorry. But I fully like agree. Like I'm not saying every like I'm on antidepressants. I'm not saying like I can see ghosts because I'm on antidepressants. I'm just saying that I feel like there's certain chemical experiences we have that they alter kind of like, I don't want to say your vibrations because I'm getting like too out there right now.
Yeah. But I get what you're putting down. Though. Yeah, I'm picking it up.
I just based on some of the stuff that I also experienced when I was having like going through like a medical thing, like I understand hallucinations feel real, but I don't know. Some of the things that I experienced, I was like, I don't trust that these were all just weird hallucinations.
Yeah.
If you relate it back to though, like to stuff that has been researched is like psilocybin, the effects of psilocybin on your brain and your neurological pathways, like being on psilocybin and like taking mushrooms rewires your brain. Like there is physical scientific evidence to like show the effects of psilocybin on your brain. I'm like, why would that mean? Does that not mean other drugs then, or other brain altering or chemical altering substances?
Yeah.
Could they also do something similar?
I feel like there's a reason why mushrooms have been used by certain cultures to kind of, I don't know, like not talk to the dead, but like for certain transcendent
rituals.
Experiences. Yeah.
Yeah. And that and like ayahuasca is like, I think of that's like, I mean, I know there's like a couple instances now people are using it otherwise, but for the most part, for like hundreds of years, ayahuasca has been purely like a cultural, spiritual
ceremony
experience.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree. Like there's not enough scientific, there's probably a lot of scientific research. And we just haven't found anything because obviously like it's so hard to prove, so hard. Like, like there's nothing that I feel like I can say that won't make me sound a little bit like a crazy person. Cause I'm like,
I'm right there with you.
We're all a little crazy though. It's fine.
Yeah. It's like, I know we've been researching this for 50 years and have no evidence, but I still believe in it for some reason. Like there's some stuff that just feels like empirical evidence is like, it's hard to collect.
Beyond empirical. Yeah.
Well, and even when you think of like, we don't know everything the brain can do. Yeah. So who's to say that certain things impact it or these things aren't like real, you know?
We only know enough about the brain because the brain has told us those things. You know what I mean? Like that's the weird trippy thing.
I hated that.
Oh god.
Like neuroscience and stuff like that is like everything we learn is coming from the thing itself.
The thing that we're learning about.
Yeah. Like sure, we have devices and medical devices to like physically see components of the brain, but it's like the understanding aspect that comes from your brain itself. Like it's just very I don't know.
It's crazy. It's like it's almost like dreams too. Like no one really knows what they mean, and I've had a couple dreams that have like come true.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
That are so weird. Like the most recent one was this year, and I was about to start, or no, last year. I was about to start at this new gym, and for some reason I was really stressed out about it. And so I was having a stress dream, and in this dream, this like super friendly, short East Indian man was in my gym, and he was like super talkative, and I was kind of like, please, too much.
I'm nervous.
Yeah. And then I went there and I was like, okay, no, he's not here. That's weird. And then the next day he was there.
Oh my gosh.
And I freaked out a little bit.
Weird.
Was he chatty? Was he super chatty?
Exactly the same. Like super friendly, super like in my bubble and excited. And I was again just like, thank you.
Oh
and then I was
gosh.
also super freaked out because I had met him earlier in my dream.
In your dream.
Yeah. So it's I already kind of know you, but you don't know me, and I don't like it.
It was so weird.
I have had many instances like that too. And I don't know if that's where like the deja vu thing comes in, but last month I had something similar like that too, where it's like every so often. And I think it's kind of the circumstances leading up to it. I had enough information to kind of piece it all together, and maybe by happenstance, sure, it happened. But my one coworker had taken some time off work. And so my senior manager had said, oh, look, she's planning to come back sometime soon. So just keep an eye out for her kind of thing. So this was our first day back in office. And where we sat, she typically sits at the time to the right of me. And so when I'm in with my headphones on, I kind of have my back towards where her cubicle is. And in the dream that I had the night before, this was like Wednesday night in office, Thursday, I dreamt that she came around the side of the cubicle, kind of poked on my back, took my headphones off, we hugged, and we got chatting about just how she's been.
Yeah.
I messaged Bailey in the morning about this, being like, I just dreamt that I saw my coworker today. this is going to be so weird if I see my coworker today. Less than 3 hours later, I'm messaging Bailey being like, guess who showed up at work today? Like,
well, that's so weird.
Same thing that I had envisioned too. Her coming around the corner, like tapping on my shoulder, us hugging, and then us chatting about everything too. Like,
wow.
I just don't understand. I don't understand how.
Yeah. No, there's definitely like there's stuff that we just simply cannot comprehend or begin to understand right now. It's like the same thing as like those dreams that like I do not have any experiences like that recently, but I can say like I have related, but like the dreams that you guys have been having recently that are coming true, I guess I can say, or like even deja vu, like that doesn't, you don't consciously remember it in a dream, but like you feel like you've experienced it before. Like something has to be going on there. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like some experiences of deja vu are like, well, yeah, I went to the grocery store and I picked up coffee and maybe someone with a red sweater walked behind. It's like, that can happen. But some instances just feel surreal. Like they're just like, I have been in this exact situation before and I have no rational explanation for that.
Yeah, I had deja vu during this episode because I think, Rebecca, I don't remember which story you were telling, but I was like, oh, I remember this. I've heard this story before. And I don't know if that's just because we've been friends for so long and the chances of me hearing this before is quite high or what. But I was just kind of like, oh, interesting. Like, yeah, no, I remember this. Like, I've heard this before. It was really quite odd.
Oh, God, that's so strange.
Wild. And I was also like, have either of you experienced sleep paralysis?
No. And I do not ever want to.
Ben has experienced it.
Oh my God.
Speak of the devil.
The timing of that was amazing.
Good Lord.
Nicole just shot her pants.
I did.
Okay.
The fucking
He's just bringing his computer back in the back. Good timing.
God.
He said his ears were burning. He knew to come in.
Yeah, no kidding.
I actually like totally lost my train of thought after that.
Ben experienced sleep paralysis.
Paralysis. Right. Okay. I was going to say that Ben actually somewhat frequently experiences sleep paralysis. But
terrifying.
He luckily enough doesn't see the hat guy. He doesn't see shadow people.
Good. Okay, that's good.
They're still not good, and he can't move, and he's fully aware he's dreaming, and he can't move, which is terrifying.
My gosh.
Yeah. But at least he doesn't see scary people, and he's had it enough that he has his ways of like being able to get out of it. But like he wakes up like at least once a week and tells me about like a lucid dream he's had, and I'm like, man, that's so cool and also so scary.
Yep. I lucid dream all the time.
Really?
Like, I can, because I'll be like, oh, this is a dream. Like I've had this before. Like I'll just change the ending, or like maybe I'll do this instead, and then it's super weird.
Wild. Why do our brains do this? Why do our brains?
Right.
And
then I was like,
crazy.
I think I've experienced sleep paralysis, but it was the same way. Like I didn't see anyone or anything, and I can only vaguely remember like not being able to move. Yeah. But it happened long enough ago that I can't recall any specifics of it.
That's fair.
Yeah. That's pretty much all we have for personal or listener ghost stories. But I have the big book of Canadian ghost stories. And there's a Halifax or a Nova Scotia one that I'm going to read, which I think is going to be kind of interesting. So this happened in 1873. All of these stories are from the 1800s, it looks like, which is so crazy. And it looks like they just like wrote the story and then sent it into a newspaper. And so this one's titled "Dead Woman Appears to Her Friends."
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. So, for some days past, rumors have been in their circulation of spiritual manifestations witnessed by persons living in the vicinity of Tufts Cove, which at the time was 3 miles outside of Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. Now, we believe it is within Dartmouth, Nova Scotia.
Yeah, it's like a community in Dartmouth now.
Yeah. There was enough reports that someone decided to go and like interview the people that it was happening to. It says the persons whom he interviewed appeared to be intelligent and not over inclined to believe in ghosts. So I think he's just trying to establish some like authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's fair.
About 4 months ago, Agnes, the wife of Brighton McCobb and daughter of Mrs. Barnstead, died and was buried. She and her husband lived 12 miles from Dartmouth on Windsor Road. And before she died, she was removed to her mother's house at Tufts Cove, where she ended up passing away. And she was laid out by a Mrs. Gay and was buried in the rural churchyard nearby. So we could literally go find her tombstone.
Let's do that. Yeah. I'm kind of tempted.
That would be so fun. Let's do it.
On Friday
all
the
respectful
12th,
though, in all respect.
I think it would
We
be
will
cool to be
respectful.
like, hey, Agnes, I read your story.
Read about you.
So on Friday the 12th, Mrs. Gay was sent for by Mrs. Barnstead, the mother of Agnes. And when she went over, she was startled at being informed that Agnes had come back.
Oh.
Which is a statement that Mrs. Barnstead proceeded to explain by stating that for some days previous, herself and the other inmates of the house had heard mysterious rappings in different parts of the premises. And so they kind of just attributed the noises to this young girl who lived with them. But that morning, they knew that wasn't the cause because this girl and the rest of the people heard the voice of her dead daughter, Agnes. And so they were all gathered in the room when the mysterious rapping was heard. And afterwards, the voices of Agnes was heard, exclaiming in low tones, "Mother, mother, mother."
No thanks.
That is
No.
so creepy.
Why-
Also, just super side note. Like I briefly forgot slang was different during that time, and you keep saying that they were rapping, and I was like,
She's
no one at it.
spitting words.
But no, they're talking, they're chatting.
Rapping, I think
I
they
just
mean
had
is like knocking on the wall.
Right.
Oh, okay, yeah. That makes a lot more sense. I didn't
Just
connect
spitting
the
bars
two.
in the
I'm
back of the
sorry.
house.
That's okay. It's obviously needed clarification, so I'm glad you brought that up. So they said, though they were all startled, the mother answered the voice asking what she wanted. The voice replied, quote, "I am a spirit. I have been sent to warn you all. I was buried alive and was awoke by hunger. I lived for 2 days after I awoke and was forced to end out of my coffin. I am come to invite you all to glory," end quote. Then, then the voice sang 3 verses from 3 different hymns that were familiar to the family.
That's horrible.
That's so scary.
Like the whole burying alive
Right?
thing. Even if that was just like a figment of my imagination and I was just like a grieving mother and that's what my figment told me, like
No, thank you.
Yeah.
That is so scary.
Yeah, the family asked if they should dig her up, and the reply was, "I am dead now and my soul is full of glory." And they're like,
That's good.
okay. So they then asked what caused her death, and the voice responded that said, "At present, it would not be judicious perhaps to make public." So,
Articulate.
yeah, I don't really know what that means. But then in parentheses, it says, "It may be stated that the doctors attributed the woman's death to a wasting of the system." So I'm assuming that just means natural causes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty right. She was a younger woman, you said? Like a daughter?
I don't know how old she was. She's a daughter to a Mrs. Barnstead, but she was married to a Brighton McCobb. It doesn't say how old she was.
She could be.
Just given that her mother's still alive, like I picture her like not old.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like 30,
Yeah.
40-ish.
I was gonna say the thing about this time could be like 14, but also
Yeah,
could be in her 20s or 30s.
yeah, exactly. So someone then sent for her brother. And so he came and heard her familiar voice. He said, "Agnes, do you want to see me?" And then
No.
he saw what appeared to be his sister's eyes float past him and felt a hand softly touch his shoulder.
No.
Just the eyes. I
That
don't
was
like
so
that.
scary.
I don't like that one bit.
At this time, Mrs. Gay was sent for, and she heard the voice address some of the members of the family by name, and then heard a rapping or knocking on the floor beneath her feet. Then the voice said, "I am going now, and I will not come again until the last day, and that will be soon." And then after the noises ceased and there's been nothing seen or heard,
I wonder if a neighborhood kid was just playing a little bit of a prank.
Well, they say the suspected mischievous girl was made to stand quietly during the seance with her hands folded and was watched. So they don't doubt, or they have no doubt that she at least had no hand in the manifestation. So they're like, she didn't do it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the family do not appear at all alarmed and not afraid of ghosts, but have an abiding faith that the spirit of their departed friend and relative has been with them. They tell their story straightly and express their willingness to testify under oath to all that they have said.
Wow.
And it's talked of to exhume the remains, but the husband of the deceased has not yet been communicated with. And until that is done, it is not probable that any action will be taken in the matter. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Very
interesting.
Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
That's so neat. I love hearing old ghost stories.
Right?
That's so fun.
I have a whole book of it.
I was obsessed. Like that book that you have, like, I don't know if that's one specifically I had as a kid, but I feel like every single scholastic book fair, I purchased like as many of the like true haunting books that I could. Like they were my favorite books.
Yeah. Oh, this one was written in 1936.
The book itself?
Yeah, I think so.
How did you
or else the
obtain this?
author was born in 1936.
Oh, wow.
How did you come into possession of this book? For someone not enjoying ghosts.
Value Village, $7.49.
Well, that's expensive for Value
I love
Village.
that and can totally see the possibility of it being written in that time, if that's the case.
Okay, no, I think he was born in 1936 because he doesn't look very old, and that is a color photograph. Maybe this was written in 2008 then. So that's pretty much all we have for our spooky ghost episode. If any of our listeners have any ghost stories they want to share with us, please do. We would love to read them. And if we get enough, maybe we can do like another episode either next Halloween or somewhere in between or something. I think that would be kind of fun to do. Mm-hmm. With that being said, our next episode is going to be on the Hillside Strangler, which I think will be very interesting. I don't really know very much about them, so could be interesting.
I love that we just choose topics and we're like, yeah, we'll find stuff about them.
Like, I feel like
they sound really cool.
Yeah, literally. Well, I think we came up with these episode ideas like in January.
Yeah, when we planned it all.
During our like very early planning meetings.
Yeah, very much so. So I think it'll be really interesting, but I know nothing about it. And if you want to know more about us, you can go to our Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok, all at What the Forensics. Our X is at WT Forensics Pod. Our website is whattheforensics.ca, where we'll post all the pictures. And there's sources for all of our past episodes and recommendations and all that fun stuff. If you have any ghost stories, you can send them to our email at whattheforensics@gmail.com. And you can also include like any reviews or comments if your streaming platform will let you. Make sure all of your apps are also auto-downloading. That helps us a ton. And if you could like, subscribe, and make sure you're following us wherever you can, that would be amazing. And with that being said, this has been another episode of What the Forensics. We hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Just a reminder to everyone that we are not professionals in the forensic science field. We are just interested in forensics and want to share what we are learning with our listeners. We're trying to give you the most accurate information, but we are human and can make mistakes. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope to see you next week.